Well, the good news is that we're managing crises after crises. China
Friedberg,
crises.
You want to tell people about this revolutionary breakthrough in cancer?
I mean, look, there was another CAR T therapy approved, 2 of them approved in the last week for myeloma. CAR T, I think we've talked about it in the past. Every human body has T cells. They're a core part of your immune system. T cells are programmed, so they have a sensor, that tells them where to go and what to destroy. And so as T cells learn what to destroy, they can be really effective at clearing bad things out of your body, clearing pathogens and invasive things out of your body. And so a few years ago, humans gained the ability to engineer T cells by adding the genetic code to a T cell, effectively engineering it to go after a very specific thing. And so the big revolution in CAR T therapies has been in oncology and cancer. So, programmed T cells to destroy specific cancer cells in the body that, you would historically have had to use really difficult, systemically challenging drugs like chemotherapies and so on to wipe out lots of cells. And in many cases, doesn't eradicate all the cancer. And CAR T, turns out it can be extremely effective at finding very specific cancer cells in your body. And in many cases, causing complete remission in cancer. And so, there was one CAR T that was approved that showed, I believe it was an 88 or 90% complete remission in multiple myeloma, which is a form of blood cancer. So they take your T cells out of your body. You just get a little blood draw, basically. They go in a lab. They're zapped with electricity, which causes them to open up slightly, and a little CRISPR edit happens. And those cells are now edited. The DNA in those cells is edited. And now those cells know to go after the cancer target. You put them back in your body after they grow up for a few days, and they filter them and test them, make sure they're safe. And after they go back in your body, the T cells go to work and they clear all the cancer cells out of your body. It's an incredible technology.
Incredible technology.
Cell-based therapies are unbelievable.
Is the name of the company involved in this A2 Bio? Is that the
No,
headline?
A2 did something else. No, so that breakthrough was even more important, I think, in the long term. What he's talking about is Janssen and Legend are the 2 companies that basically got approval from the FDA. Now, the thing with CAR T is CAR T has been incredibly believed in blood-based cancers, right? But that's an entire category that excludes solid tumor cancers. What you're talking about, Jason, this week as well, what happened was A2 Bio basically figured out how to modify these T cells in a way where you can actually attack and target a very specific solid tumor. So there's a lot more work for those guys, but if you play that out, now you have this incredible ability for your own body to be trained to fight and kill cancer, whether it's in your blood or whether it's the solid tumors.
Now, the price of these therapies today, they're charging, call it $400,000 to $450,000 per treatment. And by the way, the treatment, it's a one-time shot. I mean, it's like
what?
They pull the blood out of your body. And then the expensive, challenging part is how do you take the cells, isolate them, engineer them, test them, screen them, make sure they're safe. The way that is done today is very expensive and time consuming because the volume is low and there haven't been as many kind of engineering breakthroughs over the last couple of years.
It takes months?
It could take a week to 4 weeks. So before you get
one person, 10 people, is it the equipment that's expensive?
Oh, no. Like I actually, I invited Chamath to come with me. We went and visited one of these labs a few weeks ago, but I won't get into it. But it's unnecessarily inefficient in the sense that you can charge so much because when you spend $500,000 to treat a cancer patient, you just saved yourself millions of dollars in long-term care for that cancer patient.
So the price is determined by the alternative
That's how a lot of drugs
cost.
are priced. Is like how do you save money over the long run for the payer, the insurance company. And so if the insurance company knows over the long run they're going to pay $3 million in care for this cancer, this type of cancer,
2.5.
They're totally willing to spend $500,000 to end the cancer.
Is that the right financial calculus for this,
So here's
Chamath?
the thing. So if you look at the actual cost of doing this, there is a university in the Bay Area that is doing CAR T therapies, and their cost is about $40,000. They built their own lab to do this.
Got it.
And that, by the way, is also extremely inefficient. I think that over the long run, we can get the cost of cell therapies below $5,000. And when you can do that, by the way, CAR T can be used not just to go after cancer, but you can get it to go after autoimmunity. So people with lupus and rheumatoid arthritis, there are known B cells in your body that are making antibodies that are causing the inflammation in your body, destroying your own body. And so down the road, we could use CAR T to destroy lupus, to destroy antibodies, B cells that are producing antibodies that are, fundamentally causing autoimmune conditions, including what we talked about a few weeks ago, multiple sclerosis, given that we now have a strong belief that if you can get rid of the EBV, the Epstein-Barr virus, from your body, you can wipe that out. So CAR T can, in the long run, be harnessed not just for cancer, but autoimmunity and potentially other pathogens in the body in a really targeted way. And this is kind of the beginning of what will likely be a multi-decade kind of new therapeutic modality that's accelerating.
I had a question for you, Chamath, though, on the pricing model here of, hey, the way we price this is how much are we saving the insurer? Is that too much price optimization? Is there a better model here?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I would like to talk about something else. Related to this, Jason, there's this massive patent battle going on for CRISPR.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth, Cal, if you can give just a 2-second primer, because I think we should talk about patents just for a second. And, there's the extreme version, which is what Elon has done. And then there's the other extreme version, which is these two folks fighting over what could be a critical.
Obviously, Elon has gone with putting the patents out, making his patents open source and putting them out there and using them as a deterrent, like nuclear weapons have been. But the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office published a ruling on Monday in favor of MIT and Harvard over Berkeley. The ruling cancels certain patent applications made by the University of California and its partners regarding a CRISPR system known as CRISPR Cas9. The ruling states that they failed to provide persuasive evidence that they got the gene editing technology to work before the broad group did. The central question in dispute is which group got to the CRISPR Cas9 tool.
Basically, the whole thing here, Jason, is like there was a group led by these two incredible scientists who they won the Nobel Prize, Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuelle Charpentier. They're Berkeley and she Emmanuelle, I think she's at a university in Germany, I think. But then there was a different team trying to develop a system for CRISPR-Cas9 from MIT, Harvard at the Broad. And they all filed patents on top of each other. And this whole thing was a thing. And, the big implication of all this is what are companies supposed to do, right? Because if you are a company that wants to build a CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing thing, look, there's a lot of situations where a single point edit or a broad edit can have a meaningful change in your health. So these are businesses that should exist. You didn't know what to do because if you license the IP from the wrong person, you'd get sued.
Right.
And many companies now are like trying to license both sets of patents. And I just think, to me, it frustrated me when I read this article. This is the conversation I had with you guys in the group chat, is I think we need to think of and imagine a new way for patents to work, because it shouldn't be the case that, folks are competing for what is really effectively credit. And then what stops behind them are all the commercial companies and investors and all of the, and just the normal individual day-to-day people who want solutions to solvable problems. But the reason it doesn't get to the starting line is because of patent credit and having to deal with patent trolls. And I just think that that's a terrible situation for us to be in.
Especially if it's something that could change the course of humanity. It almost feels like an arbitrator has to come in here and force a settlement. What do you think, Friedberg, is the right thing to do? Obviously, we have a tradition of people getting to monetize, dare I say, their innovations for some period of time with a patent.
I have multiple businesses I'm involved in where we leverage CRISPR. And I will tell you that the group at Harvard, so the history is the group at Harvard and the group at Berkeley each argue that they discovered CRISPR-Cas9 around the same time, each argue that they have a right to CRISPR technology based on their discoveries that were made around the same time. And so for years, each of them have been starting companies and licensing CRISPR technologies to different companies. And all of those companies now, including several that are public, it turns out that if this ruling, is to be believed, they actually have a license to a technology that they may not actually have a license to. So there was a company that emerged a few years ago and actually made an open sourced version of this system. And so I have at least one company in gene editing, in plant gene editing, where we leverage this open source version of this system. And many more companies, many more businesses are embracing that open source alternative. I don't think that we see this turning out to be any different than what we saw with the proliferation of Linux in computer software, where Microsoft or whomever was trying to make everyone pay a licensing fee to use their operating system. And guess what markets discovered? They discovered that, hey, if someone is able to make something free and open source it, everyone will embrace it. And here we are, where most of the internet is run on open source software. So, I don't know what the right thing to do with respect to patents are, because the truth is a lot of very difficult, very expensive technology R&D dollars go into developing a technology that is theoretically someone could look at it and make a copy of it. And so I do think that there are rights to defend with respect to patents. I think that if there is something that is a critical resource that an entire industry really needs to access, an open source solution will emerge. The markets take care of it. And I think we've already seen that with CRISPR. So, it's hard to say. At the end of the day, you want to license patent a molecule and be the only person that can make that molecule and make money from it, go ahead. But if everyone's going to need that molecule to run their business and to change the world, someone's going to make a cheaper alternative or a free alternative. That's just the way markets work. So
Sacks would like to recite a poem for peace at the end of the podcast. He's gone totally soft. The pacifist, David Sacks.
No, I'd like to address what you said when you called me a pacifist, because I think.
Oh my God! Here we go. After hours. This is all in after dark. Here we go.
He's an existential pacifist.
Go ahead, Sacks. Read your poem.
When did I become a pacifist? Well, I'm not really a pacifist. Look, I still believe in the idea of peace through strength, like Reagan said. Okay. But I remember when what is the only clean win that we've had in a war since World War II? America has.
It was the win, straight shot. Clean
the first
win.
Iraq war when we drove Saddam out of Kuwait. That was George Herbert Walker Bush.
Our last conventional war.
Well, it was also the last war that we actually won. Every other war that we've done has been turned into a fiasco.
Well, winning was pretty easy to define. Get out of Kuwait. The other ones we were trying to do revolutions.
But remember, everybody wanted him to go all the way and march into Baghdad and change the regime, replace Saddam. And he said no. And he had the wisdom to stop. And everybody called him a wimp. But he still had the determination and the wisdom to stop. And then what happened? His son comes in 10 years later, and they finish the job.
Yeah.
They take out Saddam and they destabilize the entire Middle East. That's what the iron ass has got us. So what has turned me against these regime change wars? Look, when I was in college, I thought Herbert Walker Bush was a wimp, and George W. Bush was doing the right thing going into Iraq 20 years ago. But we've seen the results. And anybody today who doesn't modify their point of view on these regime change wars is a fool. I mean, they're not paying attention. And so for Lindsey Graham and, these other guys out there a lot of Republicans to be talking about regime change as something we should be seriously promoting, they've totally lost the script and they should be denounced as reckless, dangerous fools. And look, I'm seeing it on both sides of the aisle, but what we need to do now, listen, if it ends up being the case that the Russian people want to make a change, that's up to them.
Call.
That's their call.
Yes.
Obviously, I'm not opposing something that they might want to do, but for the idea that should be our goal, that's our end game, that's our objective, that is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, we'll just wind up getting in a perpetual war. Then when we leave, it'll revert. And that's what we saw. It reverts back to communist or authoritarianism. The people have to really want it. Revolutions are hard fought and bloody. And if you think you can just go in there with a couple of drones and get everybody to decide, oh, we embrace democracy from this point forward because you drone the hell out of the country, is farcical. And it's proven to be wrong. 100% agreement with you.
No ceasefire is going to be possible. I mean, it's going to be hard enough as it is to get anything remotely like a deal, but it's not even going to be possible if you've defined regime change as your objective.
It's a way to dig Putin in. Like, that's literally what he wants to, that you're giving him all the pretext he needs to keep this thing going, if it's self-preservation. Right. All right, everybody, there's your overtime. Sacks's writers were freaking out in the writers' room that he had to get his last point in before I pinned him as a pacifist.
There are no writers for this stuff, J. Cal, because look, everybody on cable news is singing from the same hymnal and following the same script. They're all beating the drums of war. There's only one critique right now, which is we're not doing enough and we're being weak and Biden needs to do more.
We're not being weak.
I agree.
Having patience is not being weak.
We are doing a lot. We're doing a lot. And we should be careful.
De-escalation is the opposite of weak.
These economic sanctions are real. We have to follow through. And I think we have to make sure that the economy is supported while we do it.
On that note, let's pray for peace, and we'll see you all next week on the podcast. The All In Summit is May 15th to the 17th. 16th and 17th are the 2 days of the conference. Poker on the 15th, tournament for charity, events every night of the week. And you can apply for a scholarship at the website summit.allinpodcast.co, or just type in the All In Summit into Google. It'll be the first link. And 400 of 600 tickets have been allocated, either sold or for scholarships. We're going to do the best we can to have as great of an audience there as possible. And for the dictator, Chamath Palihapitiya, the Rain Man, David Sacks, and the Sultan of Science, hot off the launch of Cana, congratulations, turning literally water into wine. David Friedberg, I'm Jake Al, and we'll see you next time.
Love you, boys.
Love you, besties. Bye-bye.